The storm raged. Waves crashed against the rocks. Lightning split the sky. Atop the cliffs, the Ellis Lighthouse stood defiant, a sentinel against the fury. But the lighthouse kept its own secrets, dark and ancient. Locals whispered of a legend, a tale told on stormy nights, of a knock that echoed through the empty halls, a harbinger of doom, and the knock was its calling card. Ellis, the old lighthouse keeper, knew the stories. He'd heard the whispers. He'd scoffed at the legends. Until one night, the knocking came for him. At first it was faint, a distant tapping in the night. He dismissed it as the wind, but the knocking persisted, growing louder, more insistent.
Fear gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I tried to ignore it, but the knock was relentless, secrets that chilled me to my core.
He tried to escape, but the storm trapped him. He was a prisoner in his own lighthouse, alone with the knocking and the whispers. The legend said that those who heard the knock were never the same. They were driven mad by the whispers, their minds shattered, their souls lost.
I disappeared one night, vanished without a trace. Some say I drowned in the storm. Others whisper that the knocking took me, claimed my soul for its own.
Rachel adjusted her headlamp, the beam cutting through the fog. The Ellis Lighthouse loomed in the distance, a skeletal finger against the stormy sky. A shiver ran down her spine, a mixture of fear and excitement. She hefted her backpack, its weight familiar and comforting. Inside, nestled among batteries and snacks, was her lifeline to the outside world, her camera. Her channel, Urban Explorers, thrived on the thrill of the unknown. Tonight, she was chasing a legend. The Ellis Lighthouse, shrouded in darkness and whispers, was her stage. Her pulse quickened, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The legend of the Ellis Lighthouse was more than just a story.
Rachel had first stumbled upon the legend of Ellis Lighthouse on a forgotten forum, buried beneath threads of ghost stories and local lore. The story, chilling in its simplicity, had hooked her. A lighthouse keeper driven mad by a relentless knocking, whispers that eroded his sanity. And then, silence. The legend was a siren song, pulling her in with its mystery. She had spent weeks researching, poring over old newspaper clippings and interviewing locals. Each piece of information, each grainy photograph only solidified her resolve. She had to experience this firsthand. Rachel, ever the adventurer, never backed down from a challenge.
Hey everyone, Rachel here, back with another chilling exploration. She spoke into the camera, her voice bright and cheerful, a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the forest. Tonight, we're at the infamous Ellis Lighthouse, a place steeped in darkness and mystery. She zoomed in on the lighthouse, its silhouette stark against the stormy sky. The legend says that the lighthouse keeper, a man named Ellis, was driven mad by a mysterious knocking. Some say it was the wind, others say it was something more sinister. A flicker of doubt crossed her face, quickly masked by a confident smile. Tonight, we find out. She hoisted her backpack and continued along the path, the lighthouse growing closer with every step. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the faintest hint of a sound. Was it her imagination? Or was the legend true? Echoes of the past. Rachel stepped inside, her headlamp cutting through the gloom. Dust motes danced in the beam, swirling in the air like tiny phantoms. The lighthouse interior was a cavernous space, the walls lined with peeling paint and cobwebs thick as drapes. The air was heavy, thick with silence and the weight of forgotten memories. She ran her hand along the damp stone wall, the rough texture cold beneath her fingers. The lighthouse seemed to hum with a faint energy, a low thrumming that resonated deep in her bones. She could almost hear the echoes of the past, the crash of waves against the cliffs, the mournful cry of gulls, the murmur of voices long silenced. Beneath her feet, the wooden floorboards groaned, some rotted through, revealing glimpses of the dark abyss below. She picked her way carefully through the debris, her headlamp illuminating broken furniture, scattered papers, and the remnants of a life lived on the edge of the world. A strange stillness settled over the lighthouse. The wind, which had been howling just moments before, died down to a whisper. The only sound was the creaking of the old structure, groaning under the weight of the storm. Rachel shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. The air felt different up here, colder, heavier, as if a presence had entered the room. She set up her camera on a tripod, aiming it at the lantern, its brass surface dull and tarnished. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that crackled like static electricity. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. It was just the atmosphere, she told herself, the isolation and the storm playing tricks on her nerves. But deep down, a primal fear stirred within her. A noise, soft and distant, broke the silence. A tap, almost imperceptible. Rachel froze, her breath catching in her throat. She strained to hear, her senses on high alert. There it was again, a tap, 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 like someone knocking lightly on a door. She swung her headlamp around, the beam cutting through the darkness, searching for the source of the sound. But there was nothing there. Just the empty room, the shadows deepening in the corners. She told herself it was the wind, rattling the old windows, or perhaps a bird trapped in the rafters. The knocking was relentless, a symphony of fear orchestrated to drive her mad. It seemed to be coming from inside her head now, a maddening rhythm that pulsed in time with her racing heart. She pressed her hands against her ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. It was everywhere. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the knocking stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying the pounding of her heart in her ears. Rachel slowly lifted her head, her eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of movement, any hint of what had just transpired. A faint glow emanating from the lantern caught her eye. The light, a sickly green, pulsed like a heartbeat, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. The air crackled with energy, a tangible force that sent a shiver down her spine. Rachel scrambled back from the eerie glow of the lantern, her heart a frantic drum in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee the suffocating confines of the lighthouse, but her legs, heavy with terror, refused to obey. She watched in horrified fascination as the green light pulsed, casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. The air crackled with unseen energy, raising goosebumps on her arms. A low hum, deep and resonant, vibrated through the floor, seeming to emanate from the very walls of the lighthouse. Her gaze was drawn irresistibly to the window, its glass frosted with rain and salt spray. And that was when she saw it, a figure tall and gaunt, silhouetted against the raging storm. It stood at the edge of the cliff, its form swaying slightly, as if caught in the wind. "Hello?" Rachel's voice was a choked whisper, barely audible above the pounding of her heart. She didn't know why she spoke. Perhaps a desperate, futile attempt to break the spell of terror that held her captive. The figure turned slowly, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. The green light from the lantern seemed to stretch towards it, as if beckoning it closer. Rachel pressed herself against the far wall, her eyes wide with terror. She wanted to scream, but no sound escaped her lips.
Then a voice, raspy and chilling, cut through the silence. "You heard," it rasped, the sound echoing unnaturally loud within the confines of the lantern room. "Now, answer."
"What do you want?"
Rachel whimpered, her voice barely a thread of sound. She forced her eyes open, her gaze drawn back to the window. The figure was closer now, its form no longer obscured by the storm, but illuminated by the eerie green glow emanating from the lantern. And then she saw its face. It was a grotesque mockery of human features, stretched and distorted as if moulded from clay by an uncaring hand. The eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, burned into hers, searing their image onto her soul. The mouth, a gaping maw filled with rows of jagged teeth, was stretched into a grotesque grin. It was a face born of nightmares, a visage of pure terror.
"No."
Terror, raw and primal, surged through her. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stand there, frozen in the face of this unspeakable horror. but her body refused to obey, held captive by the sheer terror of it all. The figure pressed closer, its grotesque face filling her vision. She could smell its breath now, a fetid stench of decay and seawater, and feel its icy breath on her skin. This was no ghost, no ethereal being. This was something ancient, something evil, something that had crossed the veil from some dark corner of existence to claim her. The figure pressed against the window, its long, bony fingers splayed against the glass. The sound, unnaturally loud, echoed through the lantern room, a terrifying counterpoint to the frantic beat of Rachel's heart. Rachel stumbled back, her foot catching on a loose floorboard. She fell hard, landing on the cold, damp stone floor. The camera, knocked from its tripod, tumbled to the ground, its lens capturing a distorted view of the horror unfolding above.
No, please!
Rachel cried, her voice raw with terror. She scrambled back, her hands scraping against the rough stone floor, desperate to put some distance between herself and the creature at the window, but there was nowhere to go. The lighthouse, once a beacon of hope, was now her prison, a cage holding her captive for the creature that stalked her. And then, with a deafening crash, the window shattered. The camera's lens, cracked and smeared with rainwater, offered a fragmented glimpse of the chaos. Rachel's panicked breaths filled the distorted audio, a stark counterpoint to the creature's guttural growls. The green glow from the lantern pulsed erratically, casting dancing shadows that masked the true horror unfolding in the lighthouse. For a fleeting moment the camera caught Rachel's face, her eyes wide with terror reflecting the eerie green light. Her lips moved silently, forming words lost to the static and the creature's guttural snarls. Was it a plea for mercy, a final desperate prayer, or perhaps a whispered warning to anyone who dared to seek the truth behind the legend? Then a deafening screech, high-pitched and filled with an ancient rage, ripped through the silence. The camera whirled wildly, capturing a glimpse of the creature's grotesque form as it descended upon Rachel. Its shadow, elongated and monstrous, consumed the frame, swallowing the last vestiges of light. The screen flickered, the image dissolving into a maelstrom of static and shadow. Then only darkness. The transmission abruptly cut short, left behind an unsettling silence, punctuated only by the rhythmic hiss of the recording. Weeks later, the camera was found, washed ashore miles from the ravaged coastline where the Ellis Lighthouse stood defiant against the relentless sea. Rachel, however, was never seen again. The footage, recovered and painstakingly restored, became a chilling testament to the legend's chilling truth. Some dismissed it as a hoax, a clever fabrication designed to exploit people's fascination with the macabre. Others, however, saw the raw terror in Rachel's eyes, heard the creature's chilling voice, and felt a shiver of primal fear course down their spines. They knew, with a certainty that chilled them to their core, that the legend was real. The Ellis Lighthouse still stands, a solitary sentinel against the unforgiving sea. But now it is forever tainted by the darkness that unfolded within its walls. Sailors, their vessels passing unnervingly close, claim to hear a faint knocking sound echoing from the darkened lantern room. And on stormy nights, when the wind howls and the rain lashes against the cliffs, some swear they see a faint green light pulsing from the top of the lighthouse, a chilling reminder that some legends are best left undisturbed. For the knock at the lighthouse door is not a call for help, but a harbinger of something far more sinister, a reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some legends best left untold. For once you hear the knock, there is no escaping the echo.